We lived in the suburbs. We lived a long way from the glitter and glamour of London, but every now and again we would go up to London on the train and go to the cinema. And going to the cinema in London meant only one thing: Leicester Square. That's where the big cinemas were, and that's where the films that wouldn't come to our cinema for a few weeks or even months sometimes, that's where they were being shown. And the biggest and the best was the Odeon Leicester Square. It was part of the Rank Cinema empire, and in 1967 it was refurbished at what would have been today's cost of £3.6 million. And to my amazement, one of the cinema managers of the Odeon Leicester Square has written a book, and appropriately it's called The Lights of Leicester Square. How exciting is that? It is very exciting because it's got lots of pictures of all the stars of the late 60s and 1970s, including Roger Moore, Barbra Streisand, James Mason, Maggie Smith. They're all in it, all the stars. But the biggest stars of all are the royal stars, because the Odeon Leicester Square had all the royal premiers. So you've got these glittering royals, the Queen Mother, Princess Anne, who looks really good in evening dress, but the biggest star of all, of course, is Her Majesty the Queen. Glittering, warm smile, engaging, going to the pictures, just like everybody else, except it was surrounded with glitter and flowers and little children offering her bouquets. Very, very sweet. But this book is very special, The Lights of Leicester Square, because it's written by one of the managers of the cinema. Now, I have never ever come across a book by a manager of a cinema. And she is a very special person. She's a former ballet dancer. She's from Australia originally. Her name is Felicity Fair Thompson. And she has compiled this book, which isn't just a picture book. It's a book about how you run one of the biggest cinemas in Britain. It was a capacity building of 2,000 people. Imagine getting 2,000 people into a huge auditorium and getting them out safely and swiftly so that the next performance could begin. The 1970s was a time of great turmoil in Britain, including bomb threats from the IRA. Felicity had to train her 40 usherettes to make sure that if there was a credible bomb threat, she could get those 2,000 people out safely. Queues. We're talking about queues 5 abreast. They would start outside the Odeon Leicester Square, they would weave their way into Charing Cross Road, they'd come through an alley, they come back to the other side of the Odeon Leicester Square. We're talking about queues 5 abreast comprising 2,000 people. And there were 2,000 people already in the cinema watching the previous performance, and there were 2,000 people milling around in Leicester Square. That is a huge operation. Felicity tells it all in great detail, how it was managed, how it was a daily operation that started at 10 o'clock in the morning and finished at 11 at night, and how she found love and romance in the cinema itself. But also it's the time of the royal premieres, the really big premieres of the Bond film, Barbra Streisand's Funny Girl, and all the big epics. They all had their royal premieres at the Odeon Leicester Square. I do really recommend this book to anyone that's ever been to the cinema. And I don't mean watching it on a screen at home. I mean actually going out, sometimes getting dressed up to go out, to going into that darkened auditorium and being shown to your seat by an usherette schooled in the ways of holding a torch. You do not shine the torch in your customer's eye, you do not shine the torch at the screen, you shine the torch down on the ground so that the customer gets into their seat safely, quickly and quietly. It's all in this book. It's an absolute how to run one of the great cinemas of the world, the Odeon Leicester Square, which of course had that fantastic organ, which I think had something like 1,400 pipes in it. Oh, the days of the cinema organ. And all the girls had to really watch out because they were very well trained. They looked very nice in their grey and green outfits, with their white gloves, very important in the 60s and 70s for women to wear white gloves. but they had problems. They wore these court shoes, these mid-heel court shoes, and because the carpet was made of nylon, they would get all sorts of electric flashes from their feet. And also they touched the chrome fittings, particularly the staircase, they'd also get electric shocks. But as Felicity said, that kept you alert. You know, there's nothing like a good electric shock, is there? I think this will make a marvellous present to anyone that remembers the 60s, the 70s, anyone that's been to Leicester Square, and it is a marvellous place to go. This is the book for you, The Lights of Leicester Square by Felicity Fair Thompson.